Athletes are some of the most loved public figures. Is that why they think they can get away with DUIs? From Jason Kidd to Tanya Harding, these athletes seem to be getting those a lot, like how Miguel Cabrera was caught sipping on scotch. Now, this guy didn't just get arrested, he also used the "do you know who I am" card. And once you pull that out, it's pretty much over. Miguel was spotted off a freeway about 110 miles southeast of the Detroit Tigers Lakeland training facility. The police found him sitting on the road next to his vehicle, which was still running and smoking. Miguel was casually sipping on an entire bottle of scotch when the police apprehended him, and he didn't play nice. The athlete completely refused to cooperate with the deputy authorities. Cabrera was slurring his words and didn't comply, which led more officers to show up. And then he had a full-on ego trip. He repeatedly told the police about his wealth and fame. Reports say that he had to be nudged on his thighs several times before he was brought down. He even cursed at them. Now, Miguel has sadly been struggling with drinking problems since 2009. After that, he'd promised his teammates that he'd never touch alcohol again, but it seems like all those promises were in vain. He paid a $1,350 bond to be released the next morning.
Oye, a lo mejor se quedaron dormidos esto. Oye, tipo, oye, mi hermano.
Next up, we have a New York Knicks point guard who ended up causing severe damage with his drunken antics. Remember when Jason Kidd smashed into a pole? In 2012, this athlete got into quite a bit of trouble. The NY Knicks member smashed his SUV into a street pole in the Hamptons. Now, this happened a while ago, all the way back on July 15th, 2012. Jason attended a charity event, and he decided to get a little crazy with the celebrations afterwards. He downed a pretty large amount of vodka and then made the brilliant decision to drive himself home. I mean, have these people ever heard of designated drivers? While heading home, he rammed his 2010 Cadillac Escalade into a telephone pole. Thankfully, he didn't get hurt that bad, only some minor injuries. He was transferred to Southampton Hospital, and I bet he was happy for that little detour, because he had to deal with the police right afterwards. Now, Kidd pleaded not guilty to the DUI charge, even though he was literally carried out of a nightclub before this crazy event took place. Now, this cornerback also ended up getting into an accident. Aaron Berry hit two parked cars. I feel bad for the car's owners. Imagine having to explain that an NFL cornerback smashed into your vehicle. Aaron was arrested for causing accidental damage to an unattended vehicle. Yeah, that's a pretty nice way to put it. ABC 7 Action News broke the story back in June 2012. Now, he did his best to dodge the authorities. He even left the scene on foot. But of course, they eventually ended up catching him, and the athlete was subjected to a breathalyzer test. All this went down in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Now, Barry completely denied his encounter with the police, but the claim still stood that he'd hit two parked cars.
Well, talking about this effort tonight, first half, like I was talking to your coach, I don't think I've ever seen a team not have any passing yards.
By the way, this isn't Barry's first run-in with the law. That's why he was immediately taken into custody. Next on the list, we have another repeat offender, but his tale is a lot more tragic. George Best. Now, this guy is no stranger to the authorities. Sadly, he was a victim of his alcoholism and ended up committing a lot of crimes because of it. In 1981, he stole money from a woman's handbag to fund his drinking obsession. Then, 3 years later, George was sent to prison for 3 months. This was because of drunk driving, but he didn't comply quietly when he was caught. Best also assaulted a police officer, and that probably ended up adding to his sentence. Many years later in 2004, he was once again convicted of another DUI. This time, he was also barred from driving for 20 months. Unfortunately, Best's alcohol addiction led to his death. It's just another reminder of how slippery the slope to addiction is.
I mean, apart from sport, in those days.
Now, you might know of this next athlete's troubles with the law, but for very different reasons. And you won't believe how she got caught. Tanya Harding drove her car into a ditch. This skating champion isn't exactly known for her respect for the law. I mean, she literally put a hit out on her opponent's legs. So it's not really surprising that she's gotten a DUI as well. In 2002, this athlete ran her car into a ditch. Now, that's gotta be embarrassing. She was busted by the police. They said her breath smelled very strongly of alcohol. So, of course, she was administered a sobriety test. Her blood alcohol level came up to 0.16. Wondering how much that is? Well, it's double the state limit, which is 0.08. Tanya was also asked to recite the alphabet to prove that she was sober. And you can guess how that went. The county sheriff described her attempt as pathetic. Ouch.
It's everything everybody sees me in is just black and white.
Yes.
You know, it's like it's this way or it's this way. Well, guess what? There's a middle.
Yes.
Okay, there is a gray area to everything.
Yes, and it's looking real good.
Next, we have Charles Barkley, who ran a stop sign while he was drunk. And for a very, very strange reason, he wanted Yep, you heard that right. In 2006, Charles was pulled over after running a stop sign. The police could immediately tell he was drunk, and of course, they asked him why he ignored the sign. To this, Barkley replied that he was in a hurry to pick up the girl sitting with him. That's not all though. After that, he started pestering the officer to admit that she was hot. Talk about an uncomfortable situation. Then, Barkley asked if the officers wanted the truth. When he heard them say yes, he proceeded to tell the very odd truth, that he was planning to drive around the corner to receive oral and he told the officer that he'd gotten it a week earlier from that same girl, and it was the best he's had in his life. TMI, dude. I'm sure the officer had a very interesting day writing this report down. Now, one of the most dangerous things people do when driving drunk is speeding.
Times comes into play with the way that analysts or anybody who has a voice gets an opportunity to speak on TV, the way that they're spoken about.
And that's how this next athlete got caught. Nick Fairley was going over 100 miles an hour. In the fine spring of 2012, Fairley decided to get behind his steering wheel drunk. The athlete was allegedly speeding above 100 miles per hour in his Cadillac Escalade. I'm sure he was having a great time until the state troopers spotted him outside of unincorporated Mobile County. Now, he was arrested without any issues, but he initially refused to pull over. This was just another addition to his record. He'd been arrested for marijuana possession just a month before. The Lions' defensive tackle was completely out of control. He tried to dodge the police initially, but failed in his attempt. Lastly, we have an athlete that didn't just get a DUI, he was also arrested on suspicion of vehicular manslaughter. Jim Layritz apparently drank 10 to 11 shots of alcohol before getting in the car. His car hit Fredia Ann Veitch's vehicle, and the impact made her car roll over. She died on her way to the hospital. Later, heartbreaking details emerged about the woman. She was a mother of 2 and was returning from a bartending job that supported her family. Prosecutors argued that the athlete had enough time to stop before the crash, but he was too drunk to react to the traffic light. Sadly, Layritz was not found guilty for vehicular manslaughter. Instead, he was sentenced to a year in probation. This just shows that driving drunk is never okay, no matter how famous or well accomplished you are. These were some of the athletes that have been charged with a DUI. See you in the next video.
Centered, it drops. One run is home. Here comes another. We are tied thanks to Miguel Cabrera's 134 hits against the Royals in this